Okay, good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, good evening, depending where you are in the world. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Francheska Jimenez. I'm the Assistant Director of Academic and Student Affairs at the Center for Data Science at New York University. Um, and we welcome you to today's session. So just a few quick guidelines. All attendees are muted during the event. However, you can submit questions through the Q&A box, and we will be answering these questions throughout the session. There will also be a Q&A at the end, but if you have any relevant questions throughout, please feel free to submit them through the Q&A. You also have the option to upvote any relevant questions that you want to see answered. Please note that the session will be recorded and posted to our website within the next week or so. Alrighty, so our agenda for today is we'll first have a welcome, an overview of the program from our Director of Graduate Studies of the MS program. We'll then go into some more details about CDS and the MS program, as well as information about the admissions and application processes. We'll dive into some information about the career and professional development at CDS, and then end with the Q&A with current students and staff. All right, so I'm going to pass it over to Professor Brian McFee, our Director of Graduate Studies of the MS program. Let me stop sharing my screen here.
All right, thanks, Francheska. Let me get my screen share going. So it'll just take me a moment. We have the right slides on screen. All right. So welcome, everybody. My name is Brian McFee. I'm the Director of Graduate Studies for the MSDS program here at the Center for Data Science. So a little bit about myself. So I'm a jointly appointed faculty member in data science and in music technology. And I've been working at Center for Data Science for 11 years now, which is going fast, but it's a good place to be. As I mentioned, I'm the Director of Graduate Studies here in the MS program, and my research interests are basically anything that involves extracting information from audio signals. So if you think of audio as a source of data, that's kind of what I do. But we have a lot of people doing very different things. Um, okay. So it's kind of helpful to just sort of clearly state what exactly we mean by data science, because it is a term that gets thrown around by different people meaning different things. And for us, we treat it as not just an outcropping of statistics and not just an application of computation, but really bringing the two together and integrating domain knowledge from whatever application area you happen to be working in. And this requires a very interdisciplinary approach. And we try to make it possible to transfer knowledge across application areas. So that's kind of a big motivating principle behind how everything works here at CDS is transferring knowledge between different application domains and perhaps different theoretical perspectives. And the overarching goal here is really building tools and methods to extract knowledge from data. And we treat this as kind of the primary objective rather than data as sort of an application, but computation being the key thing of interest that you might see in a computer science program. We're really kind of data forward and focusing on really making sense of the world, whatever that happens to mean in the area that you're interested in. It's probably not surprising or new at this point, but data science is in basically every aspect of everything that matters in the world, whether it's economics, science, politics, healthcare, pick your favorite. It's everywhere at this point, which is not the case when we started, but it really has made inroads in all aspects of life at this point. And this is only accelerating, right? We generate more data every day than we did the day before. And this just requires methods that will scale to help us make sense of it all. As a result, data science jobs and data engineering roles are often among the highest, well, highest ranked jobs, however you want to define ranked, but it's a growing job sector. So getting training in these areas is important and useful and beneficial to you, we hope. That's kind of where we've been, but of course, we're also in a period of rapid change and development due to AI tools. And the way this intersects with data science is really that data science is behind all of the recent advances in AI. Like all of these things have started to work because of benefits of scale, both in terms of computation and in terms of data. And understanding how this stuff works and being able to forecast where these tools are going to go in the future really requires a good knowledge of both scaling of data and scaling of computation. And this is kind of what we're all about here. So if this is something that's exciting to you and interesting for your future, you are in the right place. A little bit about the center. So this is a picture of where we live on Fifth Avenue here in New York City. So Center for Data Science, it's in many aspects very similar to a traditional academic department, but we were founded not as a department. And mostly this doesn't matter to you except for one key part, which is that all the faculty at least, who work in the Center for Data Science are jointly appointed in different areas of the university. So I'll show more details about this. But really the founding principle here was to bring together people that were doing data science in all sorts of disciplines within NYU. And NYU is a very large place, and it's very chaotic and hard to make sense of. So it was kind of designed to be a focal point or a hub of data science and over 10 years ago now. And this has been going for quite a while, and it's been pretty successful at it. So it was founded in 2013, growing out of the Courant Institute, which is essentially like math and computation at NYU. And things have been evolving and changing, and things will continue to evolve and change. But that's sort of where we grew out of. And we are currently directed by Carlos Fernandez Granda. He's sort of a mathematician, data science kind of guy. Um, that's just kind of the governance structure here. The MSDS program started very shortly after CDS was founded. And the mandate here was to be the top data science master's program in the world. And we were among the first, if not the first. Um, I always lose track of who was actually the first, but at any rate, we've been around for a while. Um, and our goal is really to be able to train data science professionals across any and all diverse fields, whether that's in industry, in academia, in nonprofits, whatever. We try to do it all. And to support that, we try and bring in students from all kinds of different profiles. So we're not necessarily just targeting students with computer science backgrounds or statistics backgrounds, but really people that are coming from um, different formative training. Maybe you have a biology or a psychology training in your undergraduate, and now you want to branch out. We want to be able to support that kind of thing. And we want to make it easy to kind of build on each other's strengths and transfer knowledge across areas and disciplines. And the faculty are very reflective of that as well. So you'll meet some of these people today on this webinar, but these are our amazing staff and they keep the place running and they are great. You should ask them lots of questions because they can tell you all sorts of things about how things actually work here that students may not know and faculty almost certainly don't know. So these are a great resource and they're all great people. So we like them. We have something on the order of 20 to 30 faculty. I've lost count at this point. We're not all on this slide, but most of us are. Um, and these are essentially going to be your instructors. Some combination of the faculty and other kind of postdoctoral researchers who teach some of our classes as well. We call them faculty fellows. They're not on this slide either because we probably haven't hired them yet for next year, but should give you a flavor of the kinds of things that we do here. And the faculty on screen right now represent a lot of different areas and disciplines and methods. So we have representation from natural language processing and understanding, machine learning methods and theory, neuroscience, computer vision, machine perception more generally. So I'm including myself in that. We also have people that look at sort of fairness, accountability, ethics, responsible data science, the more societal impact areas of data science, which is really important. It needs to be integrated in your training to do these things effectively. Um, Visualization, big data, databases, et cetera, healthcare, biomedical applications, and this list goes on and on, but this should give you a pretty good sense of what the faculty are like here, the kinds of things that we're interested in, and the kinds of things that we like to train you to do. A little bit more about the program, and I think you're going to get much more detail about this after my welcoming remarks, but this should just give you a sense of kind of how the program has evolved since it was founded. So when it was initially founded, we had a fairly small cohort size. I think this was something on the order of like 35 students in the first year. This is before I joined, so I don't know exactly. Um, but it's been steadily growing for quite a while, and it's been fairly stable for the last 3 or 4 years. We aim for about 150 students per year, and that kind of shakes out to about a 10% acceptance rate. So it's very selective. We do get a lot of applications and a lot of really strong applications. Um, so if you make it in, you're in good company. And this pays off in the long run because you end up with a very powerful alumni network. And this is very helpful for job placement and just building your professional network generally. This is one of the strengths of our program, and you should definitely take this into consideration when you're weighing your options. So I'll just give you a quick rundown of what the curriculum looks like, and I think you'll get more details about this later in the session. But we basically have 36 credits. It's typically like 3 to 4 credits per class, and this is designed to be completed within 2 years. So your first year, you're kind of on rails. Your first semester, unless you waive out of some of these classes because you have prior equivalent training, you'd be taking our intro data science class and a probability and statistics class, and maybe one elective on top of that. In your second semester, you'll take machine learning and big data. And that sort of sets the kind of foundation for everything else that you'll do in your elective courses. In your third semester, so fall of your second year, you'll take the capstone class, which is basically a large semester-long project that you do with a small team of students and a mentor from either somewhere else in the university, could be data science faculty, or it could be people from industry or nonprofits or someone external that has proposed a project to work with students on for a semester. And this can be a really strong experience for giving you practical training in putting what you learned in your first year into practice to solve real problems. And that's sort of what we call the core of the curriculum. And then on top of that, you have elective courses that you can just take to suit whatever your career goals are. Um, so this would include things like our deep learning class, the natural language processing sequence, or mathematics like optimization, Bayesian inference, et cetera. And we have some recommendations for like sort of concentration areas, et cetera. A pre-selected menu of options that you might want to consider if you have a particular career goal in mind. So we can help you with choosing your path here, but it's meant to be open-ended and flexible and support you to do what you want to do. So in terms of what you want to do, I think most of our graduates go on to industry roles in some combination of data science, data engineering, or software engineering, depending on their tastes and background. But we also have plenty of students who go into more research-oriented roles, and that can be either in industry or in academia. So plenty of people go on to do PhDs or work in industrial research labs or something in between that. And then we have maybe smaller portion, but still reasonable portion of students that go on to do entrepreneurship. So starting their own companies, doing their own thing. And it's great to see people putting what they learn here into practice in all kinds of creative and interesting ways. So what are we looking for from applicants? First and foremost, we need to know that you can do what we're going to require you to do in terms of coursework. So looking for technical proficiency in math and statistics, and you'll get a little bit more detail on this in the next section. Um, Obviously, we want people with good undergraduate track record, you know, I think that probably is not surprising. As I mentioned, we are um, specifically interested in bringing together people from different disciplines. So not just drawing out of computer science and statistics, but really people coming from places you might not expect who are interested in the same kinds of methods, if not the same kind of problems. So those are kind of um, the things on your sort of transcript that we'd be looking for. And outside of the transcript, we're looking at what are you interested in? Where do you want to go? Why do you want to do this degree? And how is it going to support you in your career path that you're planning out for yourself? So that falls into your personal narrative. And I think you'll get a little bit more of that in the next section as well. But those are kind of the four huge points that we look for in the application review process. And I think that is it for my prepared remarks. So I'm happy to hand it back to Francheska at this point. I'll stop my screen share.
Thank you, Brian. Just taking a look in the Q&A, see if there's any relevant questions for you.
Yeah, some of your questions might get answered in the chat or just punted later to the Q&A session, but you will get answers.
Yeah, looks like most of these will get covered shortly. All right, let me pull my slides up again. Okay, so this is me, Francheska. As I mentioned earlier, I'm the Assistant Director of Academic and Student Affairs. So I'll be covering the next portion of our presentation. So as Brian mentioned earlier, we have a lot of people on our team that oversee the MS program at CDS. And we have both faculty leadership as well as several members of our administrative team that support students. So key folks to be mindful of that work with our master's students in particular are Catherine Angelis, who is our Senior Director of Academic Affairs and Operations, Tim Baker, Associate Director of Academic and Student Affairs, who mainly works with our undergraduate program, but currently oversees a lot of the research opportunities that are available to master students as well. Tina Lam, our Assistant Director of Graduate Programs, who co-advises master students with me. And then we have Zoe Levin, our Assistant Director of Career Development and Industry Relations. So you will be hearing from Zoe later today. And then Joshua Gilmore, our administrative aide, who manages a lot of facilities related things for students, and then also provides support as well for students if you're on campus or related to other resources that you have access to. All right, so just to go into a little bit more detail about the curriculum. So in total, the degree is 36 credits. So as Brian mentioned, 6 of these courses or 18 credits are required classes. Our intro class, probability and statistics, machine learning, big data, the capstone project, and the one data science elective. So out of these 6 courses, only one can currently be waived, and that's the probability and statistics class. So if applicants have some prior coursework that may be equivalent to this course, then it is possible to request a waiver. And depending on what documentation you provide, the faculty member will review and confirm whether or not it's eligible to be waived. Waiving just means that it's waived, but you still would need to make up the credits for that course with another elective. And then the final 18 credits would be elective courses of the student's choice. So these could be courses within within data science. Many students also take courses at other departments at NYU, other schools. So it could be at computer science, math, other schools such as Stern or Steinhardt. Credits can also be completed towards an internship or independent study. So there's just a variety of options that students can partake in order to fulfill the degree requirements. All right, so I know there are a few questions about the different tracks or industry concentration in the Q&A. So to clarify, the main track is the data science general track. And so within this, students can also declare an area of interest. These are mostly used as an advisory tool. So not necessarily like restrictive in the sense that students must take courses within these different areas in order to fulfill the requirements, but they're just mainly as advisory tools to guide students if you have particular interests that you're hoping to really zero in on during your time in the program. We then have the data science biomedical informatics track, also known as the medical school track. So this is mainly geared towards students who are interested in the field of biomedical informatics, and so elective courses that are completed towards this track are usually taken at the NYU School of Medicine. Students do not need to have necessarily a biology background of any or anything of that sort in order to declare this track. But of course, you should demonstrate your interest in this in your application if that is something that you're interested in. And I should also clarify that this does not grant a medical school degree. I think sometimes that question comes up as well. This is still just an MS in data science. There's no medical degree that coincides with this. And finally, we have our data science industry concentration. And so this is mainly for students who are interested in industry targeted coursework and practical training and would like to take part in an internship within their first year. So particularly for international students that may be on a student visa, and typically there is a restriction with being able to take on internship within your first year. So students typically have to wait after they complete their first 2 semesters or their first year in an academic program before they can take on an internship. So through the industry concentration, because it is a requirement to complete an internship within the first year, students are able to do so within their first or second semester if they're able to secure an internship that early on. So our program is designed to be completed in 2 years of full-time study. However, we do have, of course, students that are enrolled part-time for domestic students or for international students if their visa allows it. There is the option to enroll on a part-time basis, and typically this means less than 9 credits a semester. The one policy that we have with this is that students must complete the degree within 5 years. And we do make an effort to have as many required of the data science classes to be scheduled in the late afternoon or evenings, but we do want to highlight that this is not guaranteed mainly because we don't always have control over when classrooms or faculty schedules are free for certain times. So we do have to be mindful of those things, and so we generally recommend students that are hoping to enroll in a part-time basis to just be aware that some classes may be offered during the daytime. And so this is something you may need to negotiate with your work to maybe have some flexibility with your schedule in order to be able to enroll in some of these courses. All right, now on to admissions. So we do have required educational prerequisites. And so these include Calculus 1, linear algebra, Intro to Computer Science, or an equivalent CS programming course. And with regards to that, there are no set requirements. In terms of the specific languages, we generally expect students to have experience with Python and R at minimum. So that is one thing to keep in mind. Python is pretty much the most common programming language that is used in the majority of the courses. So there is more of an emphasis there. So that is one thing that you may want to keep in mind as well. One of Calculus 2, probability, statistics, or an advanced physics, engineering, or econometrics course with heavy and rigorous mathematical content. And then there is some preference that is given to applicants with prior exposure to machine learning, computational statistics, other areas similar to these, especially if you have some prior computer science training. But as Brian mentioned, data science is very much an interdisciplinary field. So we are not expecting all of our applicants to come from computer science or math. We very much welcome applicants to come from other disciplines, but mainly you do want to make sure that you have this foundation of this coursework in order to be able to succeed at the level that you will be partaking in once you start the program. All right, more application requirements. So in terms of the English language exams, TOEFL and the IELTS are the main options that students have. We do not accept Duolingo. And so this is required of all applicants who are not native English speakers or who do not have a bachelor's or master's degree from an institution where the language of instruction is English. If you are unsure if your institution or your experience qualifies or would waive you from this requirement, we do recommend reaching out to the Graduate School of Arts and Science admissions team, as they'll be able to review your institution's information to make sure that it is an eligible one. So you can email them at gsas.admissions@nyu.edu, and they're more than happy to review your information to ensure that it would qualify for this waiver. Applicants also have to submit college transcripts, so this should include any institution that you attended. So let's say you maybe transferred to another school during your undergraduate program, you should submit the transcripts for both of those schools. 3 letters of recommendation. Letterhead is preferred, but it's not required. So if you are asking someone to write you a letter and they're not able to provide a letterhead, that is totally fine. This is just a preference. And then we also require a statement of academic purpose. There is an optional personal history statement as well. Again, that's optional, but it is welcome. And then lastly, the GRE is optional, so we do not require it or recommend it. All right, so some tips. I think we get asked a lot about GPA, what's the minimum GPA, what GRE score should I have? We do have a holistic review process. So there is no cutoff for GRE or GPA. If the GRE is submitted again. We do, like I mentioned before, require the English language exam if you're not a native English speaker or have previously completed in a U.S. institution or an institution where the language of instruction is English. So in this case, the required score for TOEFL and IELTS is at minimum 100 for the TOEFL and a band score of at least 7. Again, there is a holistic review process. If your score is lower, we do still encourage you to apply, but um, as we do have a very competitive application process, this is something that will be looked at. With regards to the statement of academic purpose, we encourage applicants to make sure they highlight why exactly they want to study data science, as that would just make it very clear as to why you want to pursue this, and not necessarily just because it's a growing field, which we all know it is one that it's very popular right now, but you should identify why it's important and meaningful to you. Making sure that you have great letters of recommendation. So you should be asking folks that really know you well and can describe your strong skills and your ability to succeed at the graduate level. And this is how you would stand out in the application process. Again, programming experience. As I mentioned before, Python is used most frequently in the program. And then there are a lot of FAQs on the GSAS application resource center website. So they're very detailed information about different aspects of the application. And so I encourage you to make sure to review these pages to see if there's any questions you may have that could be further clarified there. Now, with regards to tuition, scholarships, and financial aid, so tuition is determined by the university. So this is not something that is determined by CDS specifically. Students pay per credit. And so as we mentioned earlier, the MS degree requires 36 credits. Students can find the current rate on the NYU Bursar's webpage. They do have a calculator there that allows you to determine based on the number of credits that you would be enrolled in, how much the tuition estimate would be. I do want to note that probably for the next year, the information is not up to date yet. So you'll have to check back in again, probably next year. There is usually probably around a 5% increase rate. So that is something that can be noted as well. Currently, there are very limited scholarships for admission. So at this time, you can check on our webpage. We have 2 available scholarships that applicants are considered for. There is no separate application process for this. So all applicants are considered during the review process itself. There are other financial aid options that students can consider, typically other external scholarships outside of NYU or private loans, things of that sort. And so we'll share those resources as well. Finally, I think we've had some questions about fee waivers for the application. Both GSAS and CDS offer very limited application fee waivers as well. So information about this can also be found within the online application. But for reference, this is both, at least through CDS, it's available for both domestic and international students. And so you can submit a request and we will review them and inform if you were selected or not. Okay, finally, important dates. So the application is open. Our application deadline for fall 2026 is February 14th, 5 p.m. Eastern time. This is an update. So if you were previously seeing maybe some of our promotions that we had an earlier deadline, so just please note there is a change here. We do only admit in the fall, so we do not have spring admissions. All materials, including letters of recommendation, are due by that deadline. We do not accept any updates after the deadline. Of note, we do not offer rolling admissions. We do not start the application review process until after the application deadline has passed. And our admissions decisions will likely be released beginning in April. All right, so next up, I am going to pass it over to Zoe, our Assistant Director of Career Development and Industry Relations. So Zoe, just let me know when you want me to click to the next slide.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. So to start off with some context around what CDS offers in terms of career and professional development. So I think I've mentioned this in a few of the questions I've answered, but we offer career advising, and that's throughout the year, including in the summertime. So as things come up, you are always welcome to book an appointment with me or email me and chat about any questions that have come up. I always say it's better to have more specific questions. I think that always makes it a little bit easier for us to get to the heart of any concerns you have. But really, you can make an appointment about anything that's on your mind, career related. Another aspect of our career and professional development work is connecting you with companies and organizations for internships and full-time opportunities. So that can look like recruiting events, company info sessions, and things of that kind of nature. We also offer professional development workshops sometimes with alumni, sometimes with folks from within NYU, different people kind of offering their insights into aspects of your career that maybe you want a little more than gets covered in class or just as a supplement to that. And then we also collaborate with the NYU-wide Career Center, which is the Wasserman Career Center. So they offer opportunities in career and professional development to every NYU student. And oftentimes they have things that are relevant to our data science students. So making sure we are connected with them and passing that along to you all, and then occasionally working in collaboration with them. We can go to the next slide. So as I mentioned, we have company information sessions, and those can look a variety of different ways. Sometimes it's really just information about the company, but oftentimes they try to keep it a little more interesting with a panel, especially if they have alumni from NYU or even CDS in particular. They will try to include those folks to talk about what it's like to be working there, or a day in the life, project that they've worked on, things of that kind. But generally, they're all kind of lumped under the umbrella of a company information session. And then we have our career fair. We try to host this each semester. It's sort of a smaller version of what Wasserman may offer. So rather than 50 plus organizations, we have 4 to 7 companies that are currently or very likely in the near future recruiting for data science opportunities. And this is a great way to have a quick one-on-one interaction with these different organizations. And then we also offer professional development sessions, like I mentioned, so these can cover things like resume reviews, interviewing, preparation, communication skills more generally, like how to get better at networking, and also like technical interviewing preparation, things like that. And just to give you all a sense of kind of where our students end up going once they graduate. So this is looking at basically a decade's worth of statistics, but most of our students end up going into technology and finance, but there's a variety of other areas, including insurance, media and entertainment, healthcare, and then continuing in their education in academia. And then here again, this is over the whole time. So this obviously starts to shift a little if we look in the last few years, but most of our alumni do end up going into data scientist roles. But lately we've been seeing more AI engineering and things like that that maybe didn't necessarily exist as titles previously, but are sort of becoming increasingly popular now. But these are overall what we see students going into. So machine learning engineering, software development engineering, applied or research scientist, things like that. And then these are some of the stats from last year. So you can see again where our students are going in terms of industry for both their internship roles and also when they graduate into their full-time roles, and some example companies. I will just add from our most recent data, so for the 24-25 academic year, in terms of where students were ending up so far, we have multiple students going to Amazon, AWS, American Express, Grubhub, Meta, New York Life, Verisk Analytics, and Walmart Global Tech. So just to give you an idea, like some of these are pretty consistent year to year and some of them kind of change. So that's going to be updated on our website soon as well to show the most recent year. And that's all from me.
Thank you, Zoe. All right, so now we'll be doing our Q&A with current students. And then I have some scripted questions for them, but then we'll also take a look at the Q&A. So feel free to drop any relevant questions that you may have that you would like to know from the student perspective. And then we'll look in there and see if there's anything that we can answer live. But we'll also continue to answer some questions as we wrap up the session as well. So first, let's get started with some introductions from our students. So just have you all tell us your name, your previous undergrad institution, and your major. And then I'll kick off with some questions. So how about we go in order of the photos here? So Vidhi, you want to get us started?
Yes. Hi everyone. Hi everyone. I'm Vidhi, I am currently a second year master's student here at NYU Center for Data Science. And in my undergrad, I majored in math and I've done a few internships, but otherwise, I've come straight from undergrad. And I'm from India.
Hey everybody, I'm Rebecca Rinehart, or you can call me Becca. I did my undergrad at the University of Texas at Austin. I majored in biochemistry, and then I worked for 2 years in the biotech industry before coming to this program.
Hi everyone, my name is Peter, and I'm originally from Auckland, New Zealand, and right now I'm a master's student, second year at CDS. And before coming here, I did a Bachelor of Commerce degree in Finance and Information Systems, and then a Master of IT, both at the University of Auckland. And I've worked for a number of years in banking and consulting.
Thank you guys. So I'm glad we have folks with like different academic backgrounds because this first question, which I think is one that comes up a lot, especially like when we get inquiries from applicants, and I think some folks may have been dropping similar questions in the Q&A as well. So the first question is, while our program is open to students from a variety of educational backgrounds, we do require students to complete math and programming coursework for admissions. How important do you think this has been throughout your time in the program? Becca, do you want to start us off?
Sure, yeah. I can definitely say that math and programming is very is a pretty much foundational to everything that we do in this program. So I would say it's extremely important. I think something that I underestimated a little bit is the importance of math, especially when it comes to coursework like machine learning, deep learning, or some of the more advanced electives as well. I think that a tip that we try to give newly admitted students when they ask like how can I prepare for the program and have the best like chance of success in the transition into it, is to review linear algebra concepts, and I would definitely emphasize that.
Yeah, great. Peter?
Yeah, I agree with that completely. So, like right from the start, your course will dive deep into linear algebra and probabilities. And also in terms of programming, Python is the main language for pretty much all assignments and projects. So, being fluent in Python means that you can focus on the idea, rather than getting stuck on the syntax. So, if you're feeling rusty in like maths or programming, I highly recommend doing a quick refresher before the semester starts. It pays off immediately and allows you to study the more advanced classes and topics sooner.
Great. And Vidhi?
Yes. So, yeah, agree with what the both of them said. And also, like, what happens here is in the beginning, like in the first semester, it's a lot of math to get you started because they sort of want to ease you in into how math works for data science. So to have like an overall generalistic knowledge of a lot of concepts would sort of help to ease into what was going to come for you. And same goes for programming. Just like Peter said, I think it's good to brush up on the basics so you can focus on a lot of other things that would help you throughout the course.
Yeah. So I think there are some questions in a Q&A about this next one that I have, and it's with regards to letters of recommendation. So again, it's great that you guys have like kind of a variety of backgrounds. How did you decide who to ask for letters of recommendation? Especially given your like different backgrounds, some of you like worked for some time. So, were you asking like professors? Were you asking maybe supervisors at work? Yeah, so you get some insight on that. Maybe we'll start with Peter this time.
Yeah, sure. So my strategy in picking letter of recommendation was to pick someone who can give specific concrete examples of my skills. So I focused on people who actually saw my work over time, like my boss at work or my project supervisor. And also they should be able to provide a comparative perspective. So someone like my professor could compare me with to other strong students and say like where I stood in that group. And also I try to get a mix of recommenders. So I had two academic recommenders who focused on my academic side, while there was another industry recommender who could talk about how I solve applied problems or work in a team. So I approached them very early so that we could have time to develop these recommendations. And to help them with writing this letter, I gave them a small packet with my resume, a quick summary of my key projects, and a few bullet points on themes I hope they could talk about. So the main goal was to make it as easy for them as possible because they're usually quite busy and don't have a lot of time to work on this.
Vidhi?
Yes. So I think it's very important to get letters of recommendation from people who like know you well, like so for me it was like since I came straight from undergrad, it had to be either my faculty or I also took one from my internship mentor. Then it had to cover like all aspects of my like uh, academic standing as well as how I interact with peers or other people. So I think my main target was to cover different parts of who I am as a person. So one was a research specific letter of recommendation that I asked my research supervisor. One was like my extracurricular focus that sort of established how I'm good at like team building or like speaking to peers and like interaction, leadership, all of that. One was from how I used to work at my internship, and like the one from faculty also focused on how like academically sound I was, and that would sort of help me establish the fact in my application that yes, I'm a fit for the program. And yeah, it definitely helps to sort of send your profile and what you expect in each of these letter of recommendations to your to the respective people that you're asking from, and it's also very useful and like better if you just go early on to them so that if you have any tweaks that you may want to make before they sort of send in your final letter of recommendation, it would be great.
Yeah, that's a great point. Becca?
Yeah, pretty similar to Vidhi and Peter. I selected people that I had either worked with for a long time or had worked with in depth because I felt that they could speak really strongly on for my letters of recommendation. So one of them was my work manager that could speak more to my ability to work on a team, work quickly, or learn quickly, things like that. And the other one was a technical mentor that could speak more on my technical abilities and my data science skill set. And then the last one was my undergraduate PI or principal investigator that I had done research with for all of my undergrad. So he was able to speak more on my intellectual curiosity, academic success, research, interest in research, and things like that. And kind of like Peter mentioned, I wanted each of them to serve sort of a slightly different role or perspective in my letters of recommendation. So getting a mix of all three of those was really important to me. And then I also recommend that for each recommender, you give them sort of that information on, at least in my case, I gave each of the recommenders a table of all the applications I wanted them to apply for. That included a short description of each of the programs, relevant deadlines to them, how they could submit the letter, like if they're expected to create an account, if they would get an email, things like that. And then some of the themes that I wanted them to speak on about me in the letter.
So organized. I love it. Okay, so our last question I have for you guys. I think especially like now there's so many MSDS programs out there, and I'm not sure how many you all applied to. You don't have to share that here. But ultimately, what made you choose CDS specifically? Like maybe what stood out, or like maybe what was like kind of that key moment where you're like, I should go here. Vidhi?
Yeah, so I think a major standout point for me was it's since I think this was one of the first MSDS programs. So I was like, that kind of experience and that kind of establishment would definitely work well for me. Plus also like location and campus wise, that was also like a good point for me. And when I saw that CDS was like a separate community at the same while at the same time being a part of this huge organization, I felt that that would sort of be good for like community building, interacting with people from your cohort, your anybody like alumni networks or like just like first years with second years and things like that. I think that was also things that I considered. Also, like the faculty come from a variety of backgrounds and they have so much knowledge and experience and like great industry like references to go off of when they teach and all of that. So I read all of that online and I think that stood out for me while making my decision.
Becca?
Yeah, for me, there were a lot of things that I considered that I really liked. I think the interdisciplinary focus was really important to me, especially given my background. I liked that faculty sort of came from multiple departments. I also liked the curriculum of the program that half the credits that you're required to take come from electives, so that allows more flexibility in diving deeper into your personal interests and taking more electives. The city and the location and the networking opportunities was also really important to me. And then I also liked that there was a good mix of both research and industry outcomes amongst the students. Since going into the program, I was sort of undecided on what direction I wanted to go in. So I liked that there was sort of like some flexibility and a good balance between the two. And then I think the last thing for me that made a big difference was actually speaking to the admissions ambassadors. They were able to talk a lot about the kind of student experience that I could get or could expect to get, as well as high level of staff support that they had received at their time in the program. So all that made me feel like I would sort of get the most valuable experience out of the program compared to some of the other ones that I was looking at.
Great. Peter?
Yes, so I echo what Becca and Vidhi said. So this program, I think for me, it provides a lot of flexibility. So the program has a really strong maths core, but because of the joint faculty structure, you get to explore different topics with different faculties. And there's a lot of room to tailor your electives. And also, I agree with the hands-on learning part of what Becca said. So most of the courses are driven by assignments and projects, and this really pushes you to translate theory into solution that actually works, and then communicate your results clearly. And finally, that the location and the community made a big difference for me. So students here, especially from my cohort, they came from all sorts of different backgrounds, which makes the interaction much more interesting. And also being in New York City is a huge plus for connecting with practitioners and attending events they just can't get anywhere else.
That's great. Thank you guys. Okay, so I'll take maybe one or two from the Q&A. There was one here, I think someone responded to it, but someone was asking, is there, I think something along the lines of, is there anything you wish you would have known or prepared for before starting the program? Yeah, if anyone wants to take that question.
Yeah, I just wrote that. The
Okay.
only thing, the only thing that I think that I missed out on was doing a lot more self-motivated projects. I feel like just to get a hang of how you can like have your basics implemented to something realistically would have been helpful, especially for someone who has just done an like industry internship and like came straight from undergrad. So that's my only like point. Otherwise, I think just brushing up on basics and sort of mentally preparing yourself for the transition is good enough.
Valid. Okay, we have another question here. Oh, sorry, Becca, did you want to add to that?
Oh, I guess I would just re-emphasize the importance of math concepts like linear algebra. I think that was the biggest thing for me, especially because I'd taken a linear algebra elective in my first semester. So that was kind of like diving headfirst into a lot of that like higher level math coursework. But I think concepts like that show up a lot in required courses as well. So I would just say if linear algebra is not something you're super comfortable with or have taken recently, I would definitely brush up on that before starting the program.
That's a great point. Okay, so this question may be relevant to our international students specifically, or maybe in general, but they do mention work visas here, and it's a valid question. What are your outlooks on the job market based on recent events for work visas? So I know there's still a lot of, I guess, unsureness, right? Like there's still a lot of information that's not very clear about the status of like work visas and how things will look. But I guess maybe folks' feelings on that at the moment, or yeah. Mhm. Peter, Vidhi?
Yeah, no, I was just going to add the uncertainty is always going to be there, like
Mhm.
very realistically speaking in general. But I think if you sort of make use of the opportunities given to you, especially being in a city like New York, I don't think there's much holding anybody back in terms of career options.
Mhm.
So I think we'll be fine. Yeah.
I think the job market is really tough for the past 2, 3 years,
Mhm.
and it's not getting easier. But I think being in this school will help you with networking because, especially in New York City, we have alumni all over the city. So if we want to get into any company, I would probably just look them up on LinkedIn and see if there's a CDS or a NYU alumni, and then talk to them. You get to talk to them directly. Um, I think it will definitely help you if you wanted to settle in New York.
Mhm.
I think as Peter mentioned too, the alumni network is really important. I think especially if you're an international student, an advantage of the NYU program is that there are a lot of international students. And that I
Mhm.
think actually a majority of the cohort is international students. So there's a lot of sort of like people that you can reach out to, people that you can rely on who have been through the job market, through recruiting in a similar situation as you, or coming from a similar background as you. And so, yeah, definitely the alumni network is really good to take advantage of.
Mhm. Yeah, that's
Just to add on, like the alumni network is such a strong point, and also like I think we're very like helpful CDS wise. So like if they see that you're from CDS, I think any alumni would be just out there to help you.
Mhm.
That's something that I've noticed.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, we do have a really strong alumni community to the point that they started an alumni council. So that shows that they do have a very strong connection with CDS still and want to remain connected with both with each other and with students. So that's definitely one of the great aspects of our community here. All right, so I think those are all our questions. So we'll wrap up here. Thank you everyone for joining us today. As we mentioned at the start of the session, this is recorded. So we'll be sharing out the recording and these slides sometime within the next week. So they'll both be posted on our admissions webpage, but we will send a follow-up email with all attendees as well with the information. If you do have any questions that were not covered, or just in general, if you want some more clarification on the any aspects about the admissions process, you're welcome to email us at cds-admissions@nyu.edu, and we will respond to you within 48 hours. So please do reach out if you need to. And you're welcome to also follow us on any of our social media pages. We do often post a lot of current happenings at CDS there that, may just provide some more insight about what things are like here, what the program is like for students, other events, things that are going on with faculty. There's a lot going on here. So those are great ways to stay in touch and updated with what's going on. Okay, so we'll wrap up here. thank you again, and we look forward to seeing your applications this fall semester.